please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, it's green on the screen after a couple of days of sellings. Hello and welcome to Chartbusters. I'm Nigel D'Souza and with me is Mangalam Malu. Well, Mangalam, good to see some green on the screen. But Asian markets, they've come off the high point of the day. The Nikkei was up close to around 3% at the start. Now it's up only around 1%. And the Shanghai market, in fact, has moved into the red. I think the Kospi as well has come off substantially from the high point of the day, and that explains why, in fact, the Nifty as well, after starting off with a gain of around 90 to around 100 points, now we are up around 50 to around 60 points approximately. The key levels really, Mangalam, that I'll be watching out for today. Remember, yesterday we went ahead and we defended the 10,350 odd mark. That's the 100 DMA. Today, in fact, the 50 DMA, that's going to be quite crucial. 10,554. If we can defend that on a closing basis, then the bulls will be quite happy. Firm support seen at around 200 DMA. So let's hope that we don't get there.
Let's hope we don't get there. You know, Nigel, you spoke about the Nifty, you spoke about individual levels. The real thing is that a lot of the mid-caps, they're doing well after the drubbing that they took in the last couple of sessions. And when mid-caps outperform, you know, the street really believes that perhaps the downside is protected for the near term at least. And 9 stocks in the green for 1 in the red. Remember, this comes on the back of nearly 21 stocks in yesterday's trading session at this time being in the red. So some bit of recovery is what we're seeing, and individual stocks, if you got them right, if you had that conviction, Eicher Motors should come up for you. 26,500 was the low yesterday, and since then it has recovered. Remember, during the afternoon we saw that spike ahead of the numbers today at the high point of the day, up about 7% from yesterday's lows. You know,
Mangalam, and that's a good point you're making. Actually, some of these stocks, some good news has been ignored in the last couple of days. HEG, for example, graphite electrode prices, they are holding strong. We had the management that joined us as well. And that stock, in fact, yes, there is a circuit limit as well that's been expanded. It's sitting with a gain of around 16%. Graphite electrode prices, they are holding strong. The last couple of days, it was ignored. The stock had corrected sharply from the high point of the day. Jeffries as well has come out of the note. The other stock is Lumax. That as well came out with a good set of numbers. That's a standalone numbers. The stock took a drubbing. It went down to 1,500 odd. Today, in fact, as we speak, volumes have spiked up as well on that one. That's up close to around 15%. So it's encouraging to see that now the good news is being factored in. Some of these stocks that were ignored in the last couple of days, the sheet is making that distinguish, from the good and the bad.
All right, so we'll take that point forward and a lot more over the next 30 minutes. First up, all the top stories that we're tracking at this point in time. Indian markets give up gains after a gap up open, taking strong cues from the Wall Street and Asian markets. All eyes now on the RBI policy meet later today.
And it's a weak set of third quarter earnings for Dish TV. It fails to discourage buyers as the management reiterates its plan to go ahead with the merger with Videocon D2H. That explains why the stock is holding in the green.
Lupin continues to lose in trade after yet another weak quarterly performance. The pharma major reiterates margins to remain in the current range. Deutsche Bank, on the other hand, has cut the target price on that stock from 910 to 782.
And Hero Motor gains in trade after the auto major reported a 4% growth in profits while seeing a 16% growth in volumes for the third quarter.
In key earnings to watch today, Cipla is expected to report a 10% revenue growth, a steady quarter expected from Aurobindo Pharma, and from the auto space, commercial vehicle and for commercial vehicle sales for Eicher Motors likely to zoom ahead.
Okay, we've come off the high point of the day actually, so that's not very good news. Bosch is one stock that's seeing some selling. Even Bharati Airtel, pull up the intraday chart, that stock as well has come off the top. So keep an eye out on a couple of these stocks. But Prakash Gaba is with us for a quick technical check. Hi Prakash, what do you make of this start? We had to start off in the green. We're holding with a gain of around 45 points. Not very convincing. At what level would you become a buyer? Will you look this kind of a bounce to go ahead and short into?
It's not very convincing, like you said. It's really not convincing. It's opened the gap up, is trading sideways. There's no trade as yet. Where would I be a buyer? I think at the lower level, somewhere closer to around 10,440. If it's 6 support there could be some buying coming in. Until that happens, I think there's still sideways zone. We need to be stock specific.
Okay, talking about stock specific, Prakash, what are the stocks that you are specifying right now?
I like BEML. BEML certainly is looking good, seen a good up move today. We can see a move until 1325 zones, stop below 1200. Another stock that I like is NIIT Tech. That looks good, seen a good base formation yesterday, seen a good up move today as well. Has a capacity and a potential to climb to around 880 zones, stop below 832.
All right, Prakash, thanks a lot for that. We'll keep coming back to you all through the course of the day with your market as well as stock-specific action. But one stock which is on our radar right now, Natco Pharma, down about 6% from today's high point. and that's after it came out with a mixed set of numbers. But more importantly, the earnings call were on, or was on right now. Ekta was listening into it, now joins us with the key takeaways. Ekta, what was the key takeaway?
Well, you know, Mangalam, there are a couple of queries which were brought up by analysts in terms of what happened in the conference call. I've spoken to all of those analysts, and basically what worried them in terms of the conference call were a couple of takeaways. So, for example, FY18 is looking good for NATCO. So, you know, the revenue projection for FY18 is estimated at 2,100 crores. The profit is estimated at around 700 crores, and this compares to 400 crores that they've done in the 9 months of FY18. So, that implies that they'll make 300 crores in terms of profit only in Q4, and that is probably because of the Tamiflu generic drug, which is basically the flu drug and the flu season that the US has seen, and hence they'll see expedited sales in Q4 for this particular drug. But the stock is still down despite that particular guidance, and that's because of FY19. So remember that there is one of their key launches, the multiple sclerosis drug Copaxone generic, which they had launched with limited competition in partnership with Mylan, the 20 mg as well as the 40 mg version. They said that the market share is low, for example, in the 20 mg version, because there's a lot of aggression in the 40 mg version, and the 40 mg version currently they have around 15% market share. They expect more competition coming into FY19 for these particular drugs. So, for example, maybe 2 players would launch Copaxone generic in 2018. Separately, they're saying that the pricing pressure in the US is possibly bottoming out, but the US is not a market which is making money except for select products right now.
All right, Ekta. So, short point that Q4 will be good, but FY19 there is some uncertainty. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct for NATCO, and just the pricing environment which they've guided for in the US, that, you know, if 4 to 5 products of theirs are making money, but besides that, they're not, you know, it's not a lucrative market right now. And that's a very hard-hitting sort of comment which is coming from the management of NATCO.
We're slipping a bit for the market itself. The Nifty is down 20 points in the last 10 odd minutes. At the same time, the Nifty Bank, that's down about 200 points from the high point of the day. PSU banks, that one should come up for you, the PSU banking index, because a lot of these PSU banks are selling off as we speak. PNB is closer to the lower end of today's trading range. Union Bank has slipped, Allahabad Bank has slipped, even Canara Bank. All of these are slipping at the low point of the day. And if you take a look at L&T, that one too has moved to the low point of the day, taking the Nifty lower as we speak. But we have some news, Nigel?
Yeah, I think, you know, we have some news that's flashing for you on the screen. That's in terms of iron ore mining activity in Goa. I think we have Ashmit who joins in. Ashmit, what is the Supreme Court saying exactly in terms of this news? Well, if there's one stock that you can focus on, it has to be Vedanta. In terms of the share price, it accounts for a small part. That's iron ore accounts for a small part of the share price. But what is the news exactly, Ashmit?
Well, what's important here is that we've only managed to garner details from the operative part of the order. What the operative part of the order clearly says is that there were about 88 mining lease extensions that were given as far as iron ore miners in Goa are concerned. This case is specific to the state of Goa. Now, in objection to that, a petition had been filed by an NGO which raised questions of propriety and of clearances of procedures with respect to the grant of some mining lease renewal in the first place. Now, those concerns importantly have been upheld by the apex court, and in doing so, it's issued a 2-part order. The first part is critical here, that all those 88 mining lease renewals that were granted by the Goa government have been quashed. The apex court saying it unequivocally that as far as those mining lease renewals are concerned, there are exceptions, there are reasons, there are issues with the procedures in the manner in which they were issued, and hence have been quashed altogether. The second part is a bit of an interim order where the apex court has said that going forward, mining, as far as these 88 mines are concerned, will only be allowed till the date of March 16. So the apex court coming down hard as far as Goa mining are concerned. The next question that follows, of course, are which are the companies that are likely to be impacted, which are the mines that are likely to be impacted. We're awaiting those details from the councils as well as from the Supreme Court order as and when it gets uploaded to the website. But for now, a definite setback with 88 mining lease renewals being quashed by the apex court.
All right, Ashmit, thanks so much for that. So we'll have to wait for what exactly are those details. Remember, for Vedanta, they had mentioned in their con call that they're looking at additional mining allocation for their Goa mining operations. Currently, I think the cap is at around 5.5 million tons approximately, and in Karnataka, it's around 2.3 million tons. For the steel industry on the whole, Goa doesn't account for a lot of the consumption. Why? Because the grade of iron ore is very low in Goa. So, most of the iron ore that is produced there and mined there, it is not consumed, within the country. Most of that iron ore is exported. So, it doesn't create a problem for steel industry in terms of iron ore requirement. But we'll have to keep an eye for that list and see whether or not Vedanta, any of their mines are part of that list of 88 that Ashmit is talking about.
And even if they are, it accounts for a very small
part of the share price. Absolutely.
Right. So we'll keep an eye out on that. But let's talk about some gainers then. KC International, stock on our radar after posting a strong set of third quarter numbers. We have the CFO of the company, Rajiv Agarwal, joining us to detail the quarterly performance and give us an outlook for the future. Thanks a lot, Mr. Agarwal, for joining in. First up, you had a phenomenal revenue growth, 22%, which is ahead of your annual guidance of 15 to 20%. But that's just in the third quarter. Do you think for the whole year you will be able to meet that 10,100 to 10,500 crores range on the top line that you've given that you've done just about 6,400 crores in the first 9 months?
So our revenue for this quarter has grown by almost 22% on the back of the good order book that we had last year, and that order book momentum has continued even in the current year. So for this quarter, the revenue has grown by 22%. YTD revenue growth for this year has been 10%, and we are very confident that we will be able to post a revenue growth of between 10 to 15% for the year as a whole.
So you mean you are lowering the guidance? Earlier you had said 15 to 20% and now you're saying 10 to 15%. Is that right?
No, actually we had guided at the beginning of the year about 15% growth in the revenue, which during the last quarter, because of the GST issues and other things, we had actually tapered down the growth guidance to about 10 to 15%, and then we are sticking to the revenue guidance of 10 to 15%, which was revised in September last year.
All right, so 10 to 15% for the year is what we could work with then, Mr. Agarwal. What about the cables business? You're saying that you've done a good growth of around 22%. I'm looking at your cables business. That's even more or less flattish. In fact, there's a bit of a degrowth. When can we see that business growing maybe in single digits, maybe in high single digits as well going ahead? You see a recovery in quarter 4 or FY19 is when you see that recovery?
See, as far as the cable business is concerned, virtually the cable revenues have not grown. So it is more of a flattish, kind of a growth for cable business. The reason being that, in the GST, when the GST was introduced, the GST was introduced at 28% of the cable business, which has been lowered only in mid of November to 18%. So now we actually see the traction in terms of the cable business coming back, and we have the good order book for cable business, and we expect revenue growth, good revenue growth at least of 5 to 10% growth for Q4 to come back, and next year there will be a good revenue growth in the cable business for FY19.
Okay, Rajiv, so if we take a look at your cable business, you're saying 5 to 10%. That means a run rate of about 300 crores per quarter on the top line. The one segment that's doing very well is railways. From 100 crores in the comparable quarter, it's gone to about 200 crores on the top line. You recently won an order of about 1800 crores as well. So what kind of quarterly run rate can we expect in the railways business going forward? Can it touch, say, 300, 350 crores consistently on a quarterly basis?
In fact, we are expecting, for FY19, we are expecting better than that. For the current year, we should be doubling our revenue. So last year, we did about 400 crore. We have already done 485 crore till December 2017. We expect to close this year between 750 to 800 crore revenue for the railway business. And next year, we expect between 1,500 to 1,600 crore revenue for railway business, so which is again doubling the revenue. So last couple of years, we have been doubling the revenue for our railway business.
All right, Mr. Agarwal, thanks so much, sir, for stopping by and giving us all those details. The market is quite wobbly as we speak, but KEC International is holding with strong gains of around 5%. When you talk about doubling your revenues coming in from the railway segment this year and doubling it even on that high base, that'll be quite encouraging, I think. So we'll keep an eye out. And for this year, 10 to 15% is what the management is saying they'll do. Then as we speak, in fact, the Nifty bank has moved into the red. So that's not very good news. Just pull up the intraday chart over there. And some of these PSU banking stocks, they are taking a bit of a knock. PNB, pull up the intraday chart over there. That stock has moved lower very, very sharply. And in fact, we have even Canara Bank. The intraday chart of both these two stocks will tell you the picture. Besides that, in fact, on the Nifty, we're having a couple of stocks that are selling off. Vedanta, we're still trying to ascertain whether or not some of their mines will be affected by that adverse judgment that is coming from the Supreme Court in terms of Goa mining. So that stock as well has come off considerably, and Bharti Airtel as well getting a bit of a knock. But on that note, we'll wrap up on Chartbusters. You stay with us. We'll continue with the market action on the other side of the short break.